Goodness looks clean on the surface. People praise it. They say it builds trust, respect, and peace. But Machiavelli saw something different. He saw that goodness also has a hidden price, a cost most people do not talk about. In real life, being good is not always rewarded. Sometimes it is punished. Sometimes it is used against you. The world does not always respond to kindness with kindness. It often responds with advantage-taking, pressure, and control. The shocking truth is that excessive goodness can weaken power. When a person is always forgiving, always giving, and always avoiding conflict, they slowly lose their edge. Others begin to see them as predictable, and in a competitive world, predictability becomes a weakness. People start to test boundaries. They take more than they give back, not because they are evil, but because opportunity always follows weakness. Machiavelli did not say, "Stop being good." He warned against being blindly good, because blind goodness creates imbalance. It creates one-sided relationships where one person carries all the cost. Over time, this leads to frustration, loss of respect, and hidden resentment. This is the hidden truth. Goodness has a cost, and if you do not understand that cost, you will keep paying for it without knowing why. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, or you will never see me again. Let's get into it. Goodness has always been sold as a guarantee of reward. People grow up believing that if they act right, speak kindly, help others, and avoid conflict, the world will automatically respond with fairness. This belief feels safe, but it is not always real. In many situations, goodness is not rewarded in equal measure. It is simply noticed, accepted, and then expected. At first, when you are kind, people appreciate it. They thank you. They praise your attitude. They call you dependable and trustworthy. But as time passes, something subtle changes. Your kindness stops being special. It becomes your identity. And once people assign kindness to your identity, they begin to take it for granted. This is where the illusion begins. You think your goodness is building respect, but in reality, it is building expectation. People no longer see your actions as generosity. They see them as your responsibility. You give once, they expect it always. You help once, they assume it is your role. Machiavelli understood this pattern clearly. He observed that human behavior is driven more by advantage than gratitude. When people realize they can receive without equal return, they slowly adjust their behavior to benefit from it. Not always out of evil intent, but out of natural self-interest. This is where the cost of goodness begins to form silently. You start giving more than you receive, not because you want to, but because it feels wrong to stop. You fear being seen as selfish, difficult, or cold. So you continue, even when it drains you. Over time, this creates imbalance. One side carries effort while the other carries comfort. The more consistent your goodness becomes, the less it is valued. People rarely question what is always available. They only value what is limited. And because your kindness is always available, it loses its weight. The shocking truth is that goodness without boundaries does not elevate your position. It lowers it. It turns your strength into service and your generosity into obligation. Machiavelli's hidden truth is not that goodness is bad, but that unchecked goodness is costly. It costs respect, it costs leverage, and it costs influence. In the end, the illusion breaks when you realize that not everyone you helped remembers it, and not everyone you supported values it. Some will move forward without looking back. Others will only return when they need more. And if you are not aware of this pattern early, you will mistake silence for loyalty and familiarity for respect. That is the real illusion of rewarding goodness. In human interaction, respect is rarely given fully at the beginning. It is tested, slowly, quietly. People do not wake up and decide to take advantage of you. They watch you first. They observe your reactions, your patience, your silence, and your willingness to forgive. Every man should understand this process because it happens in relationships, friendships, workplaces, and even family settings. When you are too accommodating, you send a message without speaking. You are telling people how far they can go with you. At first, it starts small. A delayed reply, a small insult disguised as a joke, a request that slightly crosses your comfort zone. Nothing major. But these small actions are not random. They are tests. If you allow them without resistance, they take note. Not consciously like a plan, but naturally like a habit. They begin to adjust your value in their mind. Machiavelli understood that power is not only taken, it is measured in silence before it is taken. People push boundaries to see where they break. If you never show a breaking point, they assume you have none. And that is dangerous. Because once someone believes you have no limits, they will start placing you in situations where you must finally react. But by then, the pattern is already established. You are seen as the one who accepts, the one who endures, the one who never pushes back. In relationships, this often appears when one partner slowly becomes the decision maker. It begins with small choices: where to go, what to do, how things should be handled. If one person always agrees to avoid conflict, the other slowly takes control without force. In friendships, it appears when one person always pays, always helps, always adjusts schedules, while the other contributes less and less. In the workplace, it appears when a worker keeps accepting extra tasks without question until it becomes expected rather than appreciated. The shocking truth is that people rarely respect what is never challenged. Boundaries are not understood until they are enforced, and if you never enforce them, people assume they do not exist. This is why Machiavelli emphasized control and awareness, not aggression, but awareness. A man who does not recognize testing will mistake disrespect for normal behavior. He will think he is being kind, when in reality he is being positioned. Every unchecked action becomes a signal. Every silent acceptance becomes permission. And over time, these permissions build a structure where you are no longer treated as an equal, but as an option that can be adjusted. The cost of ignoring this process is gradual loss of influence. Not in one moment, but in repeated small moments that you never corrected. Understanding how people test your limits is not about becoming hostile. It is about becoming conscious. Because once you see the pattern, you stop confusing testing for innocence, and that awareness alone begins to shift how people treat you. Kindness is powerful when it is controlled, but when it becomes automatic and unchecked, it slowly turns into weakness. Many men do not notice this shift because it happens gradually. It does not feel like loss in the beginning. It feels like being a good person. You help, you forgive, you understand, and you avoid conflict because you believe it makes you strong in character. But in reality, unchecked kindness can start to erase your presence in the minds of others. When you never say no, people stop considering your needs. When you never challenge unfair treatment, people stop respecting your boundaries. When you always choose peace over truth, people begin to assume your silence means agreement. Machiavelli's hidden insight was not against kindness itself, but against softness that removes consequence. Because when actions have no consequence, they lose value. And when your presence has no resistance, it loses weight. In relationships, this becomes very clear over time. A man who always compromises, always apologizes first, always accepts blame just to keep peace, slowly becomes invisible in decision-making. His voice is no longer debated. It is assumed to bend. The same applies in friendships, where the kind one becomes the one who is always available, but rarely considered. In workplaces, the most cooperative employee often becomes overloaded, not rewarded. The pattern is consistent. Excess kindness without balance creates dependency, not respect. People begin to rely on your softness as a resource. They know you will not push back, so they keep pushing forward. And the more you accept, the more they adjust their expectations. This is how kindness transforms into weakness without you noticing. Not because kindness is bad, but because it becomes one-sided. Machiavelli understood that strength is not loud aggression, but controlled resistance. When there is no resistance, there is no structure. And without structure, people fill the space with their own advantage. The shocking part is that most men only realize this after their role has already been defined by others. They are seen as the agreeable one, the forgiving one, the one who never reacts. And once that identity is formed, it is difficult to change, because people resist what breaks their expectations. This is why kindness must always be paired with awareness. Without awareness, it becomes a tool others use against you. The cost of unchecked kindness is not immediate. It is slow erosion of respect. It is the quiet replacement of your voice with other people's preferences. And by the time you notice it, you are no longer choosing how you are treated. You are simply reacting to how others have already decided to treat you. That is when kindness stops being strength and starts becoming weakness disguised as virtue. Predictability feels safe in a relationship, but it quietly removes power. When a man becomes too predictable, he stops being evaluated and starts being assumed. Take the example of a man in a relationship who always reacts the same way. He always forgives quickly, always answers immediately, always agrees to avoid conflict, and always shows up no matter how he is treated. At first, his partner may see him as reliable, but over time, reliability without variation becomes expectation. There is no longer curiosity about his reaction, because his reaction is already known. Machiavelli would describe this as a loss of strategic presence. The moment your behavior becomes fully predictable, you stop influencing perception and start becoming part of the background. In this relationship, the man begins to notice small changes. He is no longer asked for input on decisions. He is informed instead of consulted. Plans are made without him, then presented to him as already settled. He feels it, but he ignores it because he believes staying calm and consistent will fix it. But consistency without authority does not create respect. It creates assumption. The partner begins to adjust behavior freely, knowing there will be no real consequence or resistance. Not necessarily out of malice, but because human behavior naturally fills space where control is absent. The more predictable he becomes, the more invisible his influence becomes. Even emotional reactions lose impact. When he is upset, it is expected to pass quickly. When he is silent, it is assumed he will return to normal. There is no uncertainty, and without uncertainty there is no tension, and without tension, there is no respect structure. Machiavelli understood that unpredictability is not chaos. It is control of perception. People pay attention to what they cannot fully predict. In this relationship, the man's predictability slowly shifts the balance of power. His partner begins to lead conversations, set emotional tone, and define direction. He thinks he is maintaining peace, but in reality, he is surrendering influence moment by moment. The shocking cost is that predictability removes leverage without confrontation. There is no fight, no argument, no clear breaking point. Just a gradual shift where one person becomes the anchor and the other becomes the current. Eventually, he realizes that even his strongest efforts no longer change outcomes, because outcomes were already being shaped long before he acted. This is the hidden truth Machiavelli points toward. When you are predictable, you become manageable. And when you become manageable, you lose the ability to shape how others treat you. In relationships, unpredictability does not mean instability. It means maintaining presence that cannot be fully assumed or ignored. Without it, even love begins to operate on autopilot. And once that happens, respect quietly starts to fade. In every relationship, there is a silent structure underneath the emotions. It is not always visible, but it decides how two people treat each other over time. This structure is built on balance, not emotion alone. Imagine a man in a relationship who finally understands that being too soft, too predictable, and too available has weakened how he is perceived. He is not trying to become cold or distant. He is trying to understand balance. Machiavelli's hidden truth is simple. Power is not about removing kindness. It is about controlling it. In this relationship, the man begins to change how he moves. He still cares, he still gives, but he no longer gives without awareness. He no longer reacts immediately to everything. He no longer agrees just to keep peace. And for the first time, the dynamic shifts slightly. His partner notices the difference, not because he has become harsh, but because he has become less available in a predictable way. There is now space where there used to be automatic access. That space creates awareness. When everything was always easy, it was also taken for granted. But now, effort is required again. Machiavelli understood that value increases when access is not unlimited. In this relationship, the man begins to see something important. When he had no boundaries, he was comfortable but not fully respected. When he starts setting boundaries, discomfort appears, but so does attention. His words carry more weight because they are no longer drowned in constant agreement. His presence becomes noticeable again because it is not endlessly available. This is the balance Machiavelli points toward. Not cruelty, not emotional games, but structure. The shocking truth is that love without structure becomes dependency, and dependency often leads to imbalance. In this relationship, the man realizes that being good was never the problem. Being good without control was the problem. When he was always forgiving, mistakes repeated. When he was always available, his time lost value. When he was always understanding, his own feelings became secondary. But now, with balance, things begin to shift. His partner starts to respond differently, not because love has disappeared, but because dynamics have changed. There is now uncertainty, and uncertainty brings attention. The relationship becomes more conscious, less automatic. Machiavelli's hidden lesson is not about manipulation, but about awareness of structure. Without balance, one person always carries more emotional weight than the other. And over time, that weight becomes resentment or indifference. With balance, both people remain aware that the relationship is maintained through mutual respect, not one-sided comfort. The man understands that strength in a relationship is not about controlling the other person, but controlling his own impulses to overgive, overextend, and overcompensate. When he stops doing everything automatically, he starts doing things intentionally, and intention changes how everything is received. That is the real balance Machiavelli speaks of. Not the absence of goodness, but the presence of controlled strength inside it. The shocking cost of goodness is not that it is wrong, but that it is often unbalanced. Machiavelli's hidden truth shows that when kindness is given without awareness, it slowly turns into loss of respect, influence, and personal power. People do not always value what is always available, and they rarely protect what has no boundaries. In relationships, friendships, and life, unchecked goodness becomes a silent disadvantage. The lesson is not to stop being good, but to be good with structure, awareness, and control. Because in the real world, even virtue without balance eventually pays a price.